Hi, my name is Sohail and I'm one of the co-founders at Movemate. Today we're going to go over some key features of the Movemate, how to get on the board and move, and some of the key best practices so that you can have a great experience. So let's start with some of the key features of Movemate. So number one, the board has an inbuilt carrying handle. So you're able to actually pick the board up like this, and that's because under the board there is a gap that creates a crevice that you can put your finger in and be able to easily lift up the board, put it along your body and be able to move around with it. The second important feature of the board is the grid lines that are present on either end of the board that help you make sure that you're placing your feet in a balanced manner. So you have 3 lines on the right side and 3 lines on the left side. You have a wide stance, a mid stance, and a narrow stance. So the idea here is to put your foot on the same stance on either side so you have a balanced activation when you're standing on the board. The third important feature is the finishing that's on the board. So Movemate is finished with a natural friction finishing that's non-abrasive. What this means is that you can actually use it with socks, shoes, or barefoot. So in this case, I'm going to get on the board, and as you can see, I'm not slipping as I'm moving on it. Movemate can be used with shoes, but our personal favorite and recommendation is to use it with socks or bare feet. It allows you to experience the dynamic movements afforded by the independent slats of the board, which gives a nice foot massage and helps to increase blood circulation and proprioceptive stimulation. Now, Movemate can be used on a variety of different flooring surfaces. It can be used on carpet, so softer surfaces. It can be used on hard surfaces like concrete, hardwood, laminate. The only difference is that with a softer surface, you have a little bit more limited range of motion, and with a harder surface, you have more freedom of motion with the board. The board's actually designed in a way that distributes the pressure on the floor to help prevent damage on these different types of flooring surfaces, but it is quite versatile in that way. If you have flooring that is highly sensitive or scratch prone, we recommend using a protective mat. The last feature I want to go over is how to store the board. And that is basically the board has a lip that's created to hide the screws. So you can actually store the board on its side and it'll hold against the wall nicely like that. You can store it underneath a desk and you can fidget with it, or it can become a footrest, or you can actually just store it nearby in your workplace to make it easy to access. So now that we've gone over some of the key features of Movemate in terms of using the board, let's go over how to step on, how to move on the board, and some of the basic moves you can do, as well as some of the combinations you can try. And at the end, we'll talk about a disclaimer that there's no actual rules. So you want to really play with it and feel through the motions and find what moves you best. So with that said, first things first, to step on the board, we're going to start with a wide stance first. What you want to do is you want to put one foot on the board. So align your foot into the middle of the board and against the last line. And then once you feel the ground, you just want to step on the other side. Now, Movemate is not a balance board. A lot of people look at it and get on thinking they're going to require a lot of balance. Yes, it's challenging your core, but the idea here is to step on and off very smoothly. It's got a wide surface, so you're going to be stable on it. Now that you're on the board, let's talk about how to move. So the idea with Movemate is really to shift your body weight and to be able to allow your ankles to be loose in the process. Let's go over the key sort of basic moves and then the different combinations you could do. So first, you have your swinging side to side, which is very simple. You're just moving your body weight from one side to the next. Then you have your rocking forward and backwards, so kind of like a calf raise. And then you have your twisting motion, which is just twisting left and right. Now, I'm on a harder surface, so it's easier to do that twisting motion. If you're on a carpet or a soft surface, it might require a little bit more effort, but it's still possible. And finally, you have the flexing motion. You're just pushing your one toe down and the other foot heel will automatically push back. So Movemate sort of reacts just the way every action has a reaction when you're moving in real life. Movemate sort of mimics that normal ankle flexion as you're walking around. Now, if you start to combine some of these moves, let's say you're combining the swinging with the flexing, that gets you into more of a wavy type of motion. So this is probably the closest to a walking motion there is with the board. The other thing you can try is you can hold one side down and you can flex the other side as well. So as you can see, this is a combination between the swing and the flex, but you're activating different muscles or activating muscles and joints differently. Another thing we can try is just swinging back and flexing again to the other side. Feel your way through the different motions and combine the different dynamic movement options that are available with the Movemate. So another example I'd like to point out, I can be doing the flex in a very static posture, but I could also rock forward a little bit and I can get more heel extension with that flex. Similarly, I can rock back a little bit and I can get more forward sort of toe extension with that flex. There are just really many different types of moves and combinations you could do. Another example is going from heel on one side, toe to the other side, heel on one side, toe to the other side. So all of this really to say that there are no particular rules. You know, the idea here is there are some basic moves, there are some ideas for combination moves, but it's really coming down to you feeling the board and finding what moves you best and playing around with it and exploring the Movemate. Movemate puts you in full control of the motions that you're doing. So you can decide to have a more active type of movement going, but at the same time, you can easily decide that you want to stop and be a little bit more neutral in your stance. Now, this is really helpful because if you're in a meeting, you may want to actually have more dynamic motions going on. But if you switch the window and you want to type something, you can easily stay stable. Again, you can do subtle movements. You can just like move your toes, for example. So it's a really dynamic platform that allows you to find what makes sense and move in a way that's ideal for the type of work that you're doing. And you have full control over the board, unlike a balance board, for example. Let's talk about the different stances on Movemate. The ideal way to sort of start is to be shoulder width apart and really in the mid or wider stance. So in the wider stance, you have more flex range of motion. When you come a little bit closer to the mid stance, you have a little bit less range of motion. And then when you come to the narrowest stance, you have even less range of motion in terms of that flex, but you still have this nice grip on the board to do a rocking sort of motion. Now, the idea here is that it's not good to stay in one posture for too long. So you do want to vary that posture. Find what's comfortable as your neutral go-to stance, but at the same time, you want to sort of move around the board and play with the different motions available. So if you want to come a little bit forward and maybe get your heels on it, if you want to step a little backwards and go to a wider stance and then shift to a more narrow stance, the idea is your next move or your next posture is your best posture. What sets Movemate apart from every single board out there is the fact that it actually moves with individual slats. So each board has 14 individual slats that are brought together in symmetry, and every action on the board has a reaction on the opposite side. So if I push my right foot forward, my left foot comes back. And if I push my left foot forward, my right foot comes back. And what this does is it allows you to get into this rhythmic, flowing pattern of movement that requires very little thinking. So if you can imagine you're on a call, you're not actively thinking about trying to push forward or move your body. It's just every action has a reaction, and then that action has another reaction, and you get into a state of flow and a rhythmic pattern of moving. Of course, if you wanted to stop moving and be still, you can do that as well. Now what this also does, it allows you to be very dynamic in the movement patterns. So you can go side to side, you can go corner to corner, you can rock front to back. You can really have any movement option that your ankles and your feet allow for. And that's really what separates Movemate from anything else out there. Now that we've looked at the features, we've looked at how to get on the board and some of the basic moves to do, let's go over some of the best practices. The first best practice is allow yourself to actually feel the board and feel yourself through the movements. Loosen your body. Think very little about what's going on. So the less you think about it, the better it feels and the better you're able to work the board, and just be rhythmic in the way that you move on it. So once you get into a state of thinking about using the board in this way, it becomes very fluid, it becomes very intuitive to use. So the second best practice I want to talk about is your frequency of using Movemate and how it's going to operate in your workday. So the idea with Movemate is not to use it throughout the day, all day. Just like sitting all day is bad and standing all day is bad, moving on the Movemate all day is not recommended. Insert Movemate throughout your workday, and it's to break apart the periods of inactivity and to vary your posture. So sit, stand, move, switch your postures. Start with 10-15 minutes at a time and then build up from there as you become comfortable, as you build on stamina. The third best practice of using Movemate is start where it's easiest and most natural. Meetings are a really good place to start using Movemate because you're not having to try and sort of stop and type, even though it's quite easy to, and you're probably going to start doing that very easily. But meetings are a good way. When you're in meetings, raise your standing desk, talk and participate while you're moving, and that's a good way to begin getting comfortable with the board. Now we've gone over all of the key points to get you started for you to begin using Movemate and having a great experience. If you have any questions at all, we're happy to answer them. We can even get on a call with you if you'd like. Our email address is hello@letsmovemate.com, so you can reach out to us directly. Feel free as well to check out our Instagram account @letsmovemate. We tend to post quite regularly, and there's going to be a lot of inspiration there on what you can do with the Movemate and answers to questions you may have. So thank you for joining me. Have a nice day.